Hi, my name is Michael Sahno. I'm Jewish and I love Israel. So if you love Israel, if you love being Jewish, or if you have an unwavering connection to the land of Israel, then you're in the right place. Welcome to the 12 Cities in Israel podcast. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Hey, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? My name is Michael Sahno, and welcome to the 12 Cities in Israel podcast, the only positive podcast about the people, the food, the culture, and the history of the state of Israel. Hey, listen, if this is your first time watching, don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button so that you are in the loop for all the new videos. If you're listening to us and you want to take us with you, you can find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and on Spotify. And this podcast is brought to you by the 12 Cities in Israel Modern Hebrew flashcards. If you want to learn Hebrew or you just want to brush up, we have the system for you. We have three different sets right now, and we're going all the way up to 5, and they are available on Amazon for Kindle. Now, if you don't have a Kindle, you can download Kindle for your Android, for your laptop, desktop, all of your devices. So not having a Kindle is not an excuse to not use it. Also, we just released our Who is a Jew children's bedtime story, written by me and illustrated by Dana Korolkova, who is a amazing artist, illustrator who lives in Tel Aviv. And yeah, so let's start the show. All right, hey, welcome back. This is part 2 of last week. We did the history of the city of Haifa, and this episode we do the modern city. And I love Haifa. It's one of my favorite places in Israel. I love Israel. It's so weird how such a small country can have so much diversity of flora, people, customs, culture, all of that. And Haifa is unlike any other place in Israel. It's unlike any other place in Israel at all, and I'm really excited to talk to you about it. Now, as you know, when we do the history, part 1, we always go up to the British Mandate, and then we start with the state of Israel. We start with the Declaration of Independence and the war that followed quickly after. But Haifa's a little bit different, and I'm just gonna go through my research with you guys and let you guys figure out why it's different on your own. So buckle up, guys. All right, so Haifa is the 3rd largest city in Israel with a population of almost 300,000 as of 2019. It is one of Israel's primary seaports and is located on Israel's Mediterranean coastline, on the southern part of the Bay of Haifa. It lies about 56 miles north of Tel Aviv and is the major metropolitan regional center for northern Israel. It really is. It's a sprawl. It's great, but it's beautiful as well. And it's beautiful as well. The city is a major hub for heavy industry, petroleum refining, and chemical processing, and this has allowed it to become an integral component in Israel's economy. Haifa is also a major tourist destination with its sweeping panoramic views of the Mediterranean from every point in the city. And it's really true. There's nowhere in Haifa that you cannot see the bay and the Mediterranean. So let's start with what is called the 1948 Battle of Haifa. In the last episode, we spoke about another Battle of Haifa, which took place in 1918 during World War I against the Ottomans, with the brave Indian cavalry attack on Ottoman artillery positions on Mount Carmel. This is different. The city's role in Israel's War of Independence took place just prior to the outbreak of hostilities that resulted from the coordinated invasion by Egyptian, Syrian, Iraqi, and Jordanian forces at the direction of the Arab League on May 15, 1948. So this battle took place just prior to that. On April 21st and the 22nd of 1948, the Battle of Haifa took place. A Haganah operation, the battle was a major event in the final stages of the civil war taking place in Mandatory Palestine. On the Mediterranean coast, at the northwestern edge of the Sharon Plain, Haifa was a strategic location that all parties wanted to hold. It was the country's largest deep-water port. It sat on a line that led to the Hejaz Railway that went, there was a part of the railway that linked up with the railway between Damascus and Medina in Saudi Arabia. And it was home to the Consolidated Refinery's oil refinery. So there was a lot that... hold on. Let me just continue to read, and you'll understand. This meant for the Jewish Provisional Government and the Haganah that the capture of the port of Haifa would be vital if they were to receive much-needed arms and supplies for the upcoming inevitable conflict between the Jewish forces of the proposed state and the surrounding Arab armies. Most importantly, Haifa sat within the outlined area allocated for the Jewish state under the 1947 United Nations partition plan. So Haifa was within the borders of that partition plan and was part of the proposed Jewish state. But you're going to find out that the Arab League didn't really give a shit. So in preparation for the outbreak of hostilities on March 17th, 1948, Mohammed bin Hamad al-Huneti, the commander of the town's Arab militia, directed a convoy that was bringing 15 tons of arms and explosives into the city in preparation for keeping it out of the hands of the Provisional Jewish Government. So they were already gearing up to fight. They weren't going to hand over Haifa to the British so that they would hand it over to the Jewish Provisional Government. This convoy was part of a larger plan to bring a number of arms supply convoys into Haifa. Unfortunately for him, he was killed in an ambush when Jewish forces attacked his convoy. A highly placed informant for the Haganah provided valuable intelligence and allowed for the interception of his convoy and 8 others out of a total of 11 Arab arms convoys that attempted to make it into the city. So 9 out of 11 were destroyed or captured. So that's a lot of convoys. So one convoy had 15 tons, multiply that by 11. I mean, that's a lot of arms and explosives to fight off a very small Jewish army. So they were gearing up to win against the Haganah. So at the head of all of this prepared Arab resistance was an Arab garrison that was commanded by Captain Amin Iz al-Din, which had been appointed by the Arab Liberation Army military committee on the 27th of March in Damascus. So you already had outside forces going into the Arab community within the Palestinian Mandate and arming them for what they saw as a final conflict against the Jews. In total, there was a force of 2,000 to 3,500, but some say almost up to 5,000 Arab militiamen that needed to be addressed in Haifa if it was to be a part of the new Jewish state. So these are pretty insurmountable odds, all right? So if you take a look at the numbers, I'm going to have a sip of coffee. Peter Madeira and Jay Hatz, my two Patreon sponsors. This is for you. Give me one moment. So we are literally looking at a David versus Goliath kind of thing here. So, sorry, I love that coffee. And, I mean, anywhere from 2,500 to up to 5,000. And the thing that's frustrating is when you look into the research about this, they're very slick. Whoever's writing this stuff, they're not very clear. They tend to say Arab, but then they'll say Jewish forces. And I am calling it. I because you'd have someone, I'm not saying that so-and-so's lying. I am. I totally am. The people who are writing this are being the histories are tending to be wholly disingenuous, because they will give an outline of Arab forces and then they will just write that the Haganah went after the Arabs. And they in their head know that they're speaking about Arab forces, Arab militiamen, armed militiamen, the Arab Liberation Army. But they know that the reader might not make that differentiation and might just think that, oh, the Jews were just killing Arabs during the Battle of Haifa. Not true. So I'm going to continue. Sorry about that. I rant sometimes about disingenuous academics. So the British had previously controlled Haifa and intended to use it as a final embarkation point as they began the evacuation of their troops in early April of 1948. So they were getting ready to leave. The original intentions of the British government had been to evacuate the territory gradually from the south down in Beersheba to the north and to be completely evacuated by mid-May. This was not to be the case, though, because fighting in Tveria on the 18th of April 1948 between Arabs and Jews led to an acceleration of the British timetable for turnover. They just didn't want anything to do with it. The British then let the provisional Jewish government know that the British intended, to evacuate most of Haifa with the exception of the port, and that this evacuation would be completed by the 20th of April. With this brand new information, the provisional Jewish government and the Haganah both saw this change of plan as an opportunity and quickly prepared itself to attack the Arab militias forces in the neighborhoods of Wadi Nisnas, Wadi Salib, and Kalisa, because they weren't going to wait. They've been fighting these convoys. They've seen the armaments that are coming in. If they don't take the initiative, the Jews are going to be dead. And, you know, the concept of never again, think about it. This is less than a decade from the Shoah. You think they're going to let armed groups just come and slaughter Jews again? No, absolutely not. The Haganah force consisted of the Hish, or Haganah Field Corps, the Palmach, which is the Haganah Strike Force, and the Haganah Guard Corps. These Haganah forces attacked the Arab militias in Wadi Salib and Wadi Nisnas from Hadar Carmel, which is an area in Haifa, while the bulk of the attack on the Arab militia in Kalisa came from Neve Sha'anan. And the Arab headquarters, just so everyone knows, were in the center of the city, near the port and the railway depot. The first attack happened, it was on the Rushmiya Bridge area, and this cut off the opportunity for Arab forces to be resupplied or get reinforcements. And then came mortar bombardments by the Haganah on Arab positions. And these bombardments made it difficult for the Arab militias to rally and mount a defense of their positions before finally engaging in the streets as the Haganah pressed the attack. So they were like, boom, 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 we're coming, let's go. And after the first day of fighting, the Arab National Committee, this is how effective it was, of Haifa, were prepared to ask for a truce via Major General Hugh Stockwell. And he was the British commanding officer in Haifa. Stockwell agreed to meet with the Haganah and returned 15 minutes later to the the Arab Committee members. And unfortunately, the terms proposed by the Haganah, complete disarmament, surrender of weapons, and a curfew, were deemed unacceptable by the Arab leadership, and fighting continued. Now, during the battle, the Israeli historian Benny Morris notes, throughout, the Haganah made effective use of Arabic language broadcasts and loudspeaker vans. Haganah radio announced that the day of judgment had arrived, and to move away from every house and street, from every neighborhood occupied by foreign criminals. They're talking about the British. The Haganah broadcast called on the populace to evacuate the women, the children, and the old immediately and send them to a safe haven. Jewish tactics in the battle were designed to stun and quickly overpower opposition. Demoralization was a primary aim. It was deemed just as important to the outcome as the physical destruction of the Arab units. So they wanted them not just beaten, but demoralized to a point that they wouldn't even continue to fight. The mortar barrages and the psychological warfare broadcasts and announcements and the tactics employed by the infantry companies advancing from house to house were all geared to this goal. So they were lightning fast, press the attack. And anyone who wants to put that into another context other than a military one has no idea what they're talking about. I was in the infantry, and that is find the enemy, engage with them, and destroy them. That's the mission of the infantry. It's not to police. It's not to take prisoners. You are required, if you have casualties on the other side, to take prisoners. But your main goal is to kill the enemy. And that's it. If that's too difficult for people to, understand, then you're living in kind of a delusional world. So the second day of fighting saw more Arab militia casualties, an advantage being held by Haganah forces as they took control of the eastern quarter of the town from Wadi Husamiya Bridge to Tel Amal, as Arab women, children, and others were evacuated through to the port of Haifa and to other safe areas. So the information that I found was, because you get a lot of people who are saying that, the Haganah, they murdered women and children, but that's not the case. They had people moving out of the conflict zone, because I can't fight if I've got a bunch of civilians in the way. I want to be able to engage with the enemy. From a military standpoint, that's what I'm saying. I don't personally want to engage with anyone. I'm pretty cool with everyone. So that's just giving you some context. So by this time, Arab forces were suing for a truce, and the Jews replied that they were prepared to consider it if the Arabs stopped shooting. Put your arms down. During the afternoon, most Arab resistance had ceased in the eastern area, with the exception of a few isolated spots, and the Haganah were in possession of the Shuk as far as the eastern gate. But in other areas of the city, the battle was still raging, and Arab casualties were believed to have been considerable. They were taking a lot of casualties. Now, in the early morning, or in the early evening, around 6 o'clock, the Arab leaders met to consider the terms laid down and eventually held a joint meeting of the Arabs and the Jews in the town hall to discuss terms for a truce. But to the inability of the Arab National Committee in Haifa to guarantee that no incidents would occur, the Arab delegation declared that they would be unable to endorse the proposed truce and requested protection for the evacuation of Haifa's Arab citizens. So the Haganah and the Jewish Provisional Government said, you need to stop fighting. You need to lay down your arms. And the Arab committee said, we will do that, but we can't guarantee that there won't be Arabs that do shoot at you. So we request to be removed. That's pretty cut and dried. It's their words. Who was it? It was the Arab National Committee in Haifa said that. They asked for an evacuation of the Arab citizens. During a battle, I'm sorry, your commanders are probably going to say, all right, that's fine. Not a problem. They're not looking for inclusion during a battle. They're not looking for political correctness during the battle. We can figure this out afterwards. But if you do leave, you leave. Boom. That's all there is to it. Thus, on April 22nd, 1948, control of the city of Haifa was in the hands of the Carmeli Brigade of the Haganah, commanded by Moshe Carmel, with the British in control of Haifa's port. See, for those of you who don't know me and may have just stumbled onto this, I have a military background. My great-grandfather was in World War I, my grandfather was in World War II, and my dad was in the Vietnam War, and I was in both the First and the Second Gulf War. And on top of that, I was also on a submarine when I was in the Navy. I was in the Navy for 6 years, in the Army for 4 years. So I see things through the lens of winners and losers. There is a gray war in battle, but the final result is binary. Someone wins and someone loses. And if that's too much for someone to be able to deal with, I apologize. I welcome you to discuss it with me, but that is how I feel. And that's based on, oh gosh, I'm dating myself, 50 years of experience. So there you go. So the banner headlines of the Palestine Post, which is now the Jerusalem Post, on the 23rd of April, 1948, announced Haifa pivotal points fall to Haganah forces in 30-hour battle, and stated that the Haganah crushed all resistance, occupied many major buildings, forcing thousands of Arabs to flee by the only open route, the sea. The report was written up on the 22nd of April, but not printed until the 30th of April, and it is most likely this was done for security reasons, and estimates of the number of Arab casualties killed vary, but one source puts the number at 300. And the reason why I find that to be credible is because of the mortar campaign and the lightning fast attacks that the Haganah used. The demoralization, there were a lot of reports of the Arab Liberation Army, just the militia, just dropping their weapons and saying, nah, screw this, we're not doing this. So there you have it. And that is Haifa's major role during that period. One more sip of coffee, hold on. And from that point, they took part, Haifa took part after the establishment of the state in being a part of the war effort against all the different armies that had attacked Israel the day after it declared independence. But Haifa largely stayed out of the war, from what I understand. If I'm wrong, hit me up in the comments, talk to me. I can do an addendum video. But now, the war's over. Let's move into the modern city of Haifa. Now, following the declaration of Israel as a Jewish state on the 14th of May, 1948, by David Ben-Gurion, Haifa became one of the primary gateways for Jewish immigration into Israel. After the war, Jewish immigrants were settled into new neighborhoods such as Kiryat Haim, Ramot Ramez, Ramat Shaul, Kiryat, I got to read this right, Sprinzak, and Kiryat Eliezer. Can you tell I haven't been to some of these neighborhoods? Bnei Zion Hospital, which was formerly Rothschild Hospital, and the Central Synagogue in Hadar HaCarmel were both established during this time. And in 1953, a master plan, was created for transportation and the future architectural layout of Haifa. These guys, man. They as soon as their architectural plans for towns in Israel, we got a plan. In 1958, a group of Sephardi and Mizrahi Jews, immigrants that had come as a part of the expulsion of Jews from Arab states following the birth of Israel, rioted in the neighborhood of Wadi Salib, and their claim was that the state was discriminating against them, which it was. Their demand was simple. They wanted bread and work, and their efforts were directed at the state's institutions and what they viewed as the Ashkenazi elite in the Labor Party and the Histadrut. I think I should do an episode on that so I have to do an episode about the camps that were established for Sephardi and Mizrahi Jewish immigrants in the 1950s. I'll do that probably after. That's actually an important part of Israeli history, so I'll do that after I do the 12 Cities series. Haifa's status as a regional capital declined as Tel Aviv's grew in the third quarter of the 20th century. This decline was exacerbated by the opening of Ashdod as a major shipping port. Tourism also shrank when Israel's Ministry of Tourism placed an emphasis on developing Tiberias as a tourist center for domestic travel. Regardless of this, Haifa's popularity as a hometown maintained itself as the city's population reached 200,000 by the early 1970s. And mass immigration from the former Soviet Union boosted the population by another 35,000. That's a lot of people. Imagine 35,000 people just sitting there. This era of population boom would also see the dawn of high tech for the Jewish state, as the Matam High-Tech Park, the first dedicated high-tech park in Israel, opened in Haifa in the 1970s. Now, throughout this time, Wadi Salib, the historic downtown neighborhood where the riots took place, saw a number of its Ottoman buildings demolished. And in the 1990s, a major section of the old city was razed to make way for a new municipal center. So seat of government was built in the 1990s. From 1947, Haifa is at a population of 145,000. By 1961, that population had grown 26% to 183,000. And it had grown another 20% in 1972 to 219,500. And in 1995, it had grown to 255,904. And today, Haifa is Israel's third largest city with a population of 285,316, and a development plan approved in 2016 hopes to raise the population to 300,000 residents by 2025. And of this population, immigrants from the Soviet Union constitute 25%, according to the Israel Central Bureau of Statistics. And Israeli Arabs constitute 10%, with the majority living in Wadi Nisnas, Abbas, and in the Halisa neighborhoods. Haifa is often portrayed as a model of Jewish and Arab coexistence, but tensions and hostilities between the two and their respective neighborhoods, they do still exist. And between 1994 and 2009, the city saw its population compared to Tel Aviv and Jerusalem in decline due to aging. Young people were moving to the center of the country for education and jobs, while younger families were moving to bedroom communities outside the city. But as a result of new projects designed to improve transportation and infrastructure, Haifa has managed to reverse its population decline, and in 2009, it saw a positive net immigration into the city for the first time in 15 years. So Haifa is growing again. And now we're going to talk about all the cool things that are in Haifa and why you should go. So give me a second to have some coffee. We're on the half hour. This should only take us probably about 15, maybe 20 more minutes. This is the stuff that I love to tell you about. I love to give you the history. I love to put it all into perspective and then show you what they've done with that history. And I hope you enjoy it. I hope you appreciate it. And I hope you appreciate me for doing it. So hold on just one sec. All right, so first we're going to start with my favorite thing, sport. So there are basically, the main stadium in Haifa is called Sami Ofar Stadium. It was completed in 2014, and it is, a 30,780 seat stadium. So those 35,000 Soviet Jews could all fill that stadium. The city's two main football clubs are Maccabi Haifa and Hapoel Haifa, who both currently play in the Israel Premier League and share that Sami Ofar Stadium as their home pitch. Excuse me, that was a hiccup. Coffee and talking don't go well together. So Maccabi has won 12 Israeli titles, while Hapoel Haifa has won only one. So sorry, Hapoel Haifa. Now, Maccabi Haifa also has a professional basketball club that plays in the Israeli Basketball Super League. I love basketball. I live for basketball. Go Heat. And so this is awesome to me. And they play in the top division. The team plays at Romema. Am I reading that right? I don't want to sneeze. Sorry. Romema Arena, which seats 5,000. And they also have three other professional basketball teams. Maccabi Haifa Women, Hapoel Haifa, and Hapoel Haifa Women. So all of the teams have a male team and a female team for their basketball teams. I think they pretty much do that with football too, with soccer. But they also have a pro football, like an American football club. They also have an ice hockey team, and they also host windsurfing championships, and they do all kinds of sport. In Haifa. Haifa is a sports town. Now, I cannot talk about Haifa without talking about the Baha'i World Center, and that is the enormous, huge gardens that are found on the slopes of Mount Carmel. Now, they are amazing, and they began, well, let me see. Hold on. Let me just read this blurb to you. Today, the terrace gardens, after the death of Mizra Hussein al-Bahai, devotees secretly brought the remains of his predecessor from Iran to Haifa and built his tomb, the Shrine of the Bab, on the slopes of Mount Carmel. And today, the terrace gardens and shrine are an incredibly tranquil and beautiful memorial, as well as an immaculate example of garden landscaping. UNESCO has declared them a World Heritage Site for their cultural value as well as natural beauty. For those of the Baha'i faith, they are also an important place of pilgrimage. And you can go there. You can get tours. You can wander around it. I went there and just walked in and interestingly met the security guard was a girl from California who was a Baha'i, who came to do her service as through, I guess you have to do service in the Baha'i faith. And it was there. And these gardens are absolutely amazing. I could describe them, but I'm going to give you guys some homework. You need to go online and look up Haifa Gardens. You will thank me. It is beautiful and it is amazing. At the top of, so you have to understand, Haifa is all situated on a mountain, basically, that looks right into this harbor, the Bay of Haifa, that sits on the Bay of Haifa. And at the top is Mount Carmel. And at its peak, on the western point, is the Stella Maris Carmelite Monastery, and I spoke about this in the history. Now, the present Stella Maris Carmelite Monastery was built in 1836 and is noted for its lush frescoes portraying Saint Elijah. The interior also contains paintings of scenes from the lives of the prophets Isaiah and Ezekiel, and has a cedar figurine of the Virgin known as the Madonna of Mount Carmel. It was founded in the order was founded on Mount Carmel in 1150 as a Hermetic Catholic sect. When the order sided with Napoleon during his battle against the Ottoman Turks in 1799, the Carmelite monasteries were destroyed. In front of the building is the tomb of the French soldiers who were killed during the battle. Afterwards, the monastery was rebuilt, but was again raised in 1821 by the Pasha of Akko, and many people come here simply for the views alone, which stretch across central Haifa below out to the sea. And we're going to talk about these views when we get to another part. From the monastery, a trail leads down the grotto towards what's known as Elijah's Cave. And visitors it will see what a cave that believers hold that the prophet Elijah hid here after he killed after the killing of the priests of Baal. It is an important pilgrimage site for Jews, Muslims, and Christians alike, who all hold Elijah in high regard. If you're going to visit, remember to dress modestly to respect the pilgrims who might be visiting the site at the same time. And up until 1948, the site was a mosque. While you're up there, and what goes directly to the Stella Maris Carmelite Monastery, that's a mouthful, is the Haifa cable car. They have cable cars that go up and down the slopes. It's absolutely amazing. The Haifa cable car is the easiest way to get up the steep hill to the Stella Maris Carmelite Monastery, and by far the most fun. There are excellent panoramic views over the city and its major points of interest all the way up, and they really are. It's an amazing ride, making this an excellent activity for photographers. Even if you're not interested in visiting the monastery itself, the views from the lookout point at the top of the hill across the sprawl of Haifa and out to the Mediterranean are well worth the ride to the summit, and one of the loveliest places to walk and see in all of Haifa is the Louis Promenade on Mount Carmel. I will attest to this. The promenade is conveniently located minutes away from numerous museums, shops, and several hotels such as the Dan Panorama, the Dan Carmel, and the Nof Hotel. This pleasantly peaceful promenade etched onto the slope of Haifa's mountain is perfect for walks, jogs, runs, and basking in the warm Mediterranean sun, with an exceptional view that extends from the city of Haifa to the distant white outcropping that is Akko, because you can see all the way across the bay. You literally feel, and I know as an observant Jew, this is cringeworthy for me to say, but you feel like a Greek god sitting on Mount Olympus, just looking down. It's like something out of Clash of Titans. And yeah, I'm going to get some knocks for that comment, but I don't care, because if you've ever stood up there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is phenomenal. The Louis Promenade is, you could take the train, get in a cab, take the cab up to the Louis Promenade, get back on the train, and go back to wherever you came from, and you would still, it would be well worth the trip. You can't, you would be able to say, but we went to the Louis Promenade, but we really didn't do anything. Your eyes, you cannot believe what you're seeing. The site is so amazing. So yeah, it's open 24 hours a day. You have, you can see Haifa in the day. You can see Haifa at night. It's well worth it. There is so much to see. There is the Mount Carmel National Park, which has caves, and you can go hiking. You have, what else do you have? You have the top of Mount Carmel, where there are a bunch of shops up there, which they talk about the hotels, but they don't really go into it. It is amazing. Haifa's awesome. Down at the foothills, you have the Ein Hod neighborhood, which is an artist enclave where there are 90 artists who did. So basically what this guy did is this guy went and set up this area for artists, an enclave, a retreat for artists. And over time, he worked with the government to get them to recognize it as important to the state. And there are over 90 galleries and exhibitions in this one little neighborhood at the foot of Mount Carmel. What else do you have in Haifa? You have Bat Galim. Bat Galim's awesome. That's where the Rambam Hospital is, but it's also where the Bat Galim beach is, which means daughter of the waves in Hebrew. And if I'm wrong about that, let me know. But I'm pretty sure it translates to daughter of the waves. But Bat Galim's amazing. There are restaurants, and it's chill. It's laid back. Surfers there, windsurfers there. I love it. It's one of the greatest places. Bat Galim is also, I told you, Rambam's on one end of the neighborhood, and also on the other end is the cable cars, Bat Galim. So you can go up to the top, hop on the cable car, go down to Bat Galim, go to the beach. And if you want another beach, there's another beach called Ohev HaCarmel, and that's where the bus station is. And at the bus station is the Azraeli Mall, and that place is enormous. If you want to shop, if you have stuff you have to find, the Azraeli Mall has it, and it's amazing. There's also a lot of restaurants, hotels down there. That's on the southern side, southwestern side of Haifa. But Haifa is absolutely amazing. It is I could spend 4 episodes. I actually have a video on it that I'm going to link in the description below. And yeah, so that's the modern city of, oh wait, there's the Naval Museum and the Illegal Immigrant Museum that goes all the way back to when the white paper came out and the British stopped immigration into the British stopped Jewish immigration into Palestine. So there's a museum to that in Haifa that's on a Navy base where you have to, which has guards outside the museum, and the museum's actually locked, but I guess you have to ask for permission. They let you in, but it's so cool that they have a museum to that. All right, I'm done. Hey, listen, if you like this video, hit the like button. hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. If you want to take my podcast with you, you can find me on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Spotify. Actually, not Google Play, it's Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Spotify. As I said, this podcast is brought to you by the 12 Cities in Israel Modern Hebrew Flashcards. If you want to learn Hebrew or you want to brush up, our flashcards are the way for you to do it. Right now we have 3 sets. They are the Aleph Bet in print and script. We have numbers in Hebrew. If you want to know the world in another language, learn the numbers in that language. Boom. All of a sudden, everything becomes very simple. We also have body and clothing, where you give body parts so you can identify yourself by Ivrit in Hebrew. Clothing in Hebrew. And colors. We also included colors in that because I thought that would be very important. We have 2 more coming out. We have the home and we have food, which is going to be great. So get ready. If you want them, they're available on Amazon for Kindle. You can get Kindle you don't need a Kindle. It's also a program that you can download for Android, Apple products, for your desktop, laptop, iPhones, everything. I've got it on my tablet, my phone, and my desktop. And I'll put a link for that at the bottom as well. Yeah, that's it. All right. One last thing. Donna Korolkova, my illustrator, and I put out a children's book, Who is a Jew? It's a bedtime story to let your kid know what it means to be Jewish and that it's okay. So, hey, that's also available on Amazon for Kindle. And that's it. All right. Toda raba. Lihyot ve yalla bye.
הושעתי לפרח הנשאר כמו ציפור נודדת מחפשת מולדת על ענף עץ בטוח התיישבתי לנוח שום דבר לא מוכר שם למטה מרגישה עבודה בגבהים נשימה ארוכה לקחתי ויצאתי מבין העלים זהו